Just going forever because I know we're live. Okay, we're here.
We're here. Oh, that was Pop Out from Teen Witch, if you didn't know.
Now we're DJs too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to see like peak whiteness, that moment is good for that.
It's something.
There's a lot going on in that that little thing. So, we're here not with Johnnie Jae.
We cannot win.
Because the internet is a strange and wonderful place, and also sometimes doesn't work. So we wanted to avoid the situation we had last time where no one could hear Johnnie Jae. So we are not having her tonight, but she's coming back February 4th with actual working internet.
Oh,
but
man.
We have someone else instead.
Who is it?
First.
First, we have a rating.
We're rated R.
Why are we rated R?
Bad words.
But yeah.
Yeah, we cuss a lot. Probably more today than the other times even.
It's possible. I'm real mad.
I am real mad too. So really sad that Johnnie Jae couldn't be here. And this is a little bit of an opportunity for us because basically we're going to do a 1-hour beef corner. We're going to talk about activism and suicide and lived experience and survivorship, and then like self-harm a little bit if we have time for that too. So we're going to hit a lot of stuff. So I am Jess. I work at Rocky Mountain Crisis Partners in Colorado, and I pulled in an activist locally here to do last-minute work with us on the podcast, and I'll let her introduce herself in just a minute. But I run our statewide crisis and peer support lines and our text and chat services, all of that stuff. And I do quite a bit of work nationally around the intersections of lived experience and social justice. And I'm really excited to talk shit tonight because there's a lot of shit to be talked. So, Trauma Queen?
Yeah. I am Trauma Queen on the Twitter. I, for various reasons, prefer to not disclose my actual identity, my government name, or my face on the internet. I like to, protect my privacy. It's like the one little thing I feel like I have left in this world other than my anger. So I prefer to, when I'm doing stuff like this, keep a mask over my face so as to hide my identity. But I am an activist in various spaces, an anarchist, an anti-fascist, and suicidology's like worst fucking nightmare.
So Trauma Queen is suicidal like
Hella.
all the time, yeah. So I think that's a perspective that is often like missing in our work. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about that and how the politics of that. I think there's some really gendered politics of that as well, which we can get into. But Des, who are you?
I'm Dese'Rae Stage, and I'm tired. I'm as tired as I look. I run Live Through This, which is a series of portraits and true stories of suicide attempt survivors across the United States. I also put together I Hurt Myself Today with these fine humans, and I do lots of yelling on the internet. And that's it. That's who I am. I can't think right now. Jess is the boss today.
Things about you.
Huh?
Those are all true things about you. You were right.
That is true. Those are all true things.
And
I just woke up.
Yeah, let's see. Who do we have? We have Leia on, Chris is on. You can't see how many people are watching because our Facebook is hard to navigate at the same time as this. So we're just not going to. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm the one who has access to all that stuff.
Cool. Yeah. It's complicated.
Y'all need to go that way.
We'll try and respond to you and your questions and stuff. So.
Go that way.
I have.
Both of you.
Is that good?
A little bit. Yeah, okay.
You move you?
I see myself in the frame.
All right, good. Good. Stay there.
Good? Okay, cool. Okay, so I have a list of things to talk about. I'm going to start by listing all the things. I'm really glad people appreciate my undercut. That's not one of the things we have to get into in a significant way. I want to talk about Marsha Linehan, because I'm not done with that.
No, it got amped up, too.
What?
It got amped up. I don't know, you cut out on me, but the Marsha Linehan yelling has gotten amped up.
Yeah, people on Twitter got me amped up about Marsha Linehan more. And just in general, like the responsibility that we have as people who are providers to create change. So we'll get into that.
Okay.
Des wrote an awesome comeback about a real stupid New York Times article that we're going to talk about. I have some really big beefs with AFSP. Really big. So I wrote a long thing about it. We're going to put it on our website. And we're also going to talk about it here. And in general, we want to talk about the role of activism in survivorship and like we have as people with an audience with lived experience to do things for our people. And then we might talk a little bit about like how you can self-harm as a way of preventing suicide if we get some time for that. So that's the list. That's the agenda for today. It's a 60-minute beef corner.
60-minute beef corner!
Okay, where should we start?
Look.
Marsha.
Well, I guess that's what's happening.
Twist my arm. Okay. So, one of the things that I have noticed is that people who have benefited from DBT or providers who use DBT and have had their clients find benefit from DBT, I think that there's confusion from them around like critiquing the founder of that work or the person who created that work and saying that no one should be able to access DBT. So like, I don't care, like if you want to do DBT, you super should be able to. It should be accessible and it should be free. It's not. Actually, DBT is like the most expensive therapy that you can get, or one of them. So we'll get to that in a minute because capitalism is fucked, which we always talk about. It's never been a session where we didn't talk about that. Mm-hmm. So what's happened when I have been critical about Marsha Linehan's decision to create a memoir, write a memoir that people in the field are going to buy, are buying all the time. They're talking about it everywhere. My critique of this is that she is someone who has hidden her lived experience, hidden behind her privilege, and then waited until she had so much power that coming out about her experience would mostly benefit her, and has not used that benefit to support her people. She has actually used that benefit to say things like, if you're a provider, you shouldn't come out about your lived experience. And she has used that, and now she's used that privilege to write this book that's like, if I found my way out, you can too. And so like, let's talk about some realities here. You are a wealthy, white woman who is well respected in her field, who does not encounter any of the same problems, at least at this point, that the people who are probably utilizing DBT the most, or who would want to utilize DBT the most, would be. And so like, your ability to get through this was not about like you alone or some factors inside you, or a treatment plan, right? Your ability to get through this was about a lot of other things. And one of them was about being able to hide your identity as a suicide attempt survivor. And not all of us have that ability. And by creating more stigma about being out about it, by creating more discrimination in the field against people who are having these experiences, we've created a silence about it. And if that is because we are scared of the consequences of coming out, then that means that however the fuck we are treating people as providers is fucked up, because we are scared of what will happen to us. And if that's the case, the fact that you worked in this field for your whole career and then are going to come out later is just bullshit. That's fuckery. Make it better for people. Make it better for other people, not yourself.
Seriously. Like, I'm sure, and we talked about this last night on Twitter, I'm sure there's something to be said for it being a different time or whatever. But even if you think about that, like, that makes it extra gross that the memoir just came out, because the rest of us have been here yelling for since AAS started the division, at least, so that's 2014, that we've been yelling in that particularly organized way.
Yeah.
And I, like, yeah, maybe it would have been hard, but it's been hard for the rest of us this whole time. And I don't, like, I left the listserv, as you know, but every time I would say something that was, I don't know, pot stirry, which I still don't think that I'm particularly pot stirry.
No.
Anytime.
I feel like I'm more pot stirry. I don't know.
You're just nicer about it, or less direct, or I don't know what the fuck it is.
I just have an Elle Woods voice. It's just a lie. It's people get tricked by my little girl voice.
Something. People don't fucking like me when I say, like, things that they should understand already.
Hey, you did.
But I used to get emails from people who, like, were in academia or who were clinicians who were like, I cannot come out. I can't come out yet. I'm glad you said something. And it's like, all right, but I can't be the one who keeps getting shit on because I have the freedom and the privilege to say something. But it's people like Marsha who made that happen. And, like, it can be true at both times that she has done a lot of good and she's probably done a lot of bad. And I, like, why can't we talk about that?
Right. More than one thing can be true at once.
It's part of DBT. That's something we learn at DBT, isn't it?
It's something you learn at DBT, yeah. So, well, apparently not everyone did. So here's the other thing, is like, I don't exclude myself from this. I waited entirely too long to come out about my voice hearing. I have tremendous guilt about it. I had really good reasons for doing that. And I've had a lot of social consequence since then. I have been put in handcuffs. I have worried about my job. I have lost contracts over it. Like, I have had consequences for this. But you know what hasn't happened to me is that even when I was assessed and someone tried to hospitalize me, I don't get locked up because I have enough power not to. And I have had that for a really long time, and I waited too long. And so there's no way for me to make it safe for other people without being out. It's not right. It's not right that I waited. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm better than Marsha Linehan either. Like, that's not part of this discussion. The discussion for me here is, like, how are you going to write? So first, you're already profiting off of other people's pain. Well, I already did that one in a past episode. But, like, how are you going to publish a memoir and make money off of it after you've spent years telling people in your field, do not disclose? And this is coming on the heels of David Marin, who's a pretty prominent figure in suicidology, killing himself, and as far as I know, not reaching out to anyone. And, like, do you think that the culture around being silent in the field about your experiences helped with that? Fuck no, it didn't. We are all complicit in that shit.
Yeah, it's a problem, and I don't know how we're gonna, honestly, like, I have no idea how you're gonna decrease the suicide rate if it's so fucked up within the field.
Yeah.
Like, we need to...
She's gonna absolutely continue to line her pockets, though.
Of course.
With behavior therapy.
Right. So for me, like these kinds of issues, when these things pop up, this is a matter of like, this is about social justice for me, and it's an obligation that I feel like I have as a survivor of like psychiatric injustice and as a suicide attempt survivor to be vocal about these things. And that is also like an integral part of my identity as a survivor, is like activist work and using my power to like move things forward. So I am interested because I know for both of you, activism is this very core component of like who we are and who we are in the field. I'm interested in how that's sort of like healing for you and motivating for you and things like that.
Talk to that other one first. The masked wonder.
I think so. For me, I have dabbled in all the treatments possible. I'm somebody with a borderline personality diagnosis, and I experience chronic, very intense suicidal ideation. I'm a suicide attempt survivor. I self-harm to manage my suicidal intensity. And like basically all the things I've ever done to cope have been treated like the wrong things. And so I've had like, you know, there have been times in my life where I have had many of my coping skills weaponized against me. So I have had like, you know, I'm somebody who's had to be like, you know, had shown my face in many like activist spaces, and then in other ones I've chosen to like be a little bit more private because of the consequences that are still at times like I'm still threatened with. You know, like part of this is like keeping my face covered so that my family won't see me. And because I know that like people in my family who know of my mental health will still do the wrong things, the things that they think are best, not the things that I think are best in terms of like my crisis, what it means to be in suicidal crisis. So that's a little bit about my experience. I have found that so something I know about myself is that when my suicidal intensity gets really, really bad, it usually means that I'm feeling trapped in some way. Because part of what has like led to, or part of what's contributed to my trauma and my diagnosis of borderline personality disorder has been my like freedom and autonomy restricted from me. So the activism that I participate in, the social justice work that I participate in is directly tied to that. The feeling of loss of autonomy is huge, which is why I'm an anarchist. And you know, the feeling of having like rights and like, you know, personal choice taken away is another reason why I do the work that I do. For me, if I did not have the work in activist spaces, like I would not be here. Like some shit's not worth living through. A lot of shit's not worth living through. Like I think like in suicidology and in like the mental health like space, there's this whole like, you know, it gets better and like, you know, there will be another good day. You've had good days before, you can have them again. And like, you know, I think like we all deserve the right to tap the fuck out whenever we want. And if it weren't for the organizing that I do, you know, the work that I participate in my community, that's, you know, with people that are also experiencing the things that I've experienced or differently horrifying things that maybe I haven't experienced. If I didn't have that, like I that's when I'll check out. Like it's literally like a lifeline for me. And I refuse, like, so part of my issue with DBT is the fact that like it's so like it's all about like managing your symptoms and your behaviors to make the people around you comfortable, not about what's going to actually help me feel comfortable in the world and the body with the brain I have. And so I reject that. Like I actively reject that. I think, you know, I carry a lot of privilege. I carry a lot of privilege, first and foremost being my whiteness. And it has been hard to bend over backwards to the whims of the providers around me or people in power around me. It's exhausting and it hurts. It's painful to do that, to constantly be like adjusting my who I am as a person to make others feel comfortable. And I'm tired of that. And like I said, I have a lot of privilege, and it's even more dangerous for people without, people who are not white, people who are not able-bodied, people who don't have jobs, people who can't have jobs, people who are not straight passing. If you bend outside the lines of what's considered appropriate, the consequences are dire. And for me, if I'm not like actively pushing back against that, and throwing myself, on the front lines of that fight, then I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot, specifically about how, like, having things to live for is important, and that, like, activist work, when the situation is really, really fucked up, activist work gives you something to live for in times that are terrible, because it's not like suicidology is doing anything to change our circumstances.
Ooh. Yep.
I mean, okay. Suicidology is, because, like, we're here.
Yeah.
Traditional suicidology can fuck itself.
Yeah. Critical suicidology is doing something about that. That's, like, the point of that. Okay.
That was the point of that.
It's extremely ugly looking right now, and I'm going to clean it off while Des talks.
Oh, what am I going to talk about? So one thing that TraumaKween said that really struck me is, and something I've been thinking about a lot, was talking about, like, suicide being an option, and that's something that we do not fucking talk about in this field, because don't kill yourself. Oh, Jess is filled with rage. She's showing us. That's a good sound. We got sound effects.
Look at how better it is.
There we go.
Yeah, you look beautiful. And a thing that I've been thinking about is leaving suicide on the table and what that means. And that came up for me most in, like, the most salient way when I was pregnant, because shit got real harsh and real dark. And I wanted to escape. Like, that baby put me through it. And I couldn't kill myself. That was the first time that it was not a fucking option for me. It was not on the table because there was another person involved. And that was a really scary time. That was probably one of the darkest times I've ever had. She's great. Don't ask me if I'm going to stay alive because of my babies now, because I will punch you if you ask me that. Like, hard. That's fucked up.
I hate that so much. But it was, like, that was, like, a really, really hard time.
That was bad. My nipples are also grateful that this winter is not making them want to die.
That was the funniest part to me of your pregnancy, but really horrible for you.
Hilarious in retrospect. I mean, any kind of temperature change, if my nipples got hard, it was like someone was shoving knives through them. Knives that were on fire. Like, it's one of the worst things. And my boobs are just so grateful that this winter is not, like, beautiful. It's beautiful because of global warming. I mean, climate change. It should not have been 70 degrees out on Christmas Day. That shit was fucked up. Anyway, so I liked that, the talking about it being an option, suicide being an option, and I don't know, activism. Why am I here? I don't know. This is just what I do. I just am a loudmouth, and sometimes people listen to that. But it does.
Talk about the New York Times.
Huh?
Talk about the New York Times.
Oh, God, we were going to that? You asked me about my activism. I was trying to get my shit together and say something, like, articulate-ish.
I'm just excited for you to talk about everything. I'm excited tonight about all of our stuff. So you can keep talking about activism and then lead into the New York Times.
No, it's fine. I'll talk about the New York Times. So this motherfucker wrote an op-ed, and he's a psychiatrist. I have a decent psychiatrist. Like, some of them are fine. I hope something bad happens to him. You know, something.
That's my version of praying, is I say maybe something bad will happen to them.
Fuck this guy. He's causing so much harm. So he wrote this op-ed for the New York Times where the subheadline of it was, suicide is now the second highest cause of death for teenagers. And it's like, bro, look around. This has been that way since 2011. Like, he just figured it the fuck out.
Discovered the internet.
And then he talked about how, what was it? Depression is the cause of all of these suicides. Just depression, that's it. And that everybody needs to be medicated more. He blamed the black box warnings that went on antidepressants in 2004 for killing people, essentially. He said, so if you don't know about the black box warnings, kids were killing themselves. There was maybe a connection to antidepressants, and so there were probably yes. And so some people activisted about getting this black box warning on these meds, and Leah Harris was one of them. So
Leah's a boss.
Yeah. So they did that. They got the black box warnings on there, and some prescribers did stop prescribing them as much for, I think it was like 2 or 3 years. But the rates of suicide were still climbing. And ultimately, in the end, like, the efficacy of the black box warnings, they just stopped being useful also like another 3 years later. And then the suicide rates kept rising until 2011, when it was the second leading cause of death for kids 15 and 24. So he blamed it on the black box warnings. There weren't enough kids being prescribed antidepressants, and obviously that is what we need, is more antidepressants and more screening, and voila, that is like the solution to this fucking suicide problem, according to this man in his op-ed. I'm still mad. It's been over a week. I'm still pissed off. And I keep trying to get this guy to respond to me on Twitter in various ways, and he won't. I'm gonna find your email address, motherfucker. I'm gonna find it. I have things to say. So anyway, I wrote a letter to the editor of the New York Times, and I knew that they probably weren't going to publish it because it was too long. It was twice their recommended word count, but, like, I couldn't make it any tighter. I could not make it any tighter. I had shit to say. And I only kept my 2 main points in this letter to the editor. Like, I had a lot more. My Twitter rant had, like, 14 different points.
Yeah.
And there are links on the website to the Twitter rant and my response to the editor, my letter to the editor. And now I've lost my train of thought. So you do some talking, and I'll, figure out what the fuck I was thinking.
Yeah.
New York Times continues to outdo itself with the amount of fuckery it publishes.
Dude.
Which is why people should spend $8 a month on literally anything else.
You could spend it on Bitch Magazine and get this really dope cup that says "Filled with Rage."
That's where you got that?
They didn't use me for that. I'm really excited about this cup.
I have a Fox's Pizza cup that's very, very old. It's like a decade
I don't know
old.
what that is.
I don't either. My mom worked there, but I like the cup.
Well, so you brought up screening and stuff, so that leads into my AFSP rant, probably.
Hey, AFSP, are you ready?
Okay, so here's the thing, is AFSP is, like, tremendously good at raising money for suicide prevention, and I think there are some things AFSP does that I like. Like, they have this program for people who have survived loss, where they connect them to other people who have survived similar loss, and it's beautiful peer support. Do more of that. That's a great use of your money. Oh, but you're not really using your money on it. Because we're wasting our money on a bunch of bullshit. So So
Subheadline of it was
AFSP has a project that started 5 years ago. 5 years ago. It's a 10-year project, and it's called Project 2025. And the goal is to reduce the suicide rate by 20% by 2025, which I think is lovely. I would love if 20% less people wanted to kill themselves than did. I think that's fine, just as a general goal, although I don't think reducing death should be the ultimate goal of like suicide. But AFSP's strategy, they spent the first 4 years of their project reviewing the literature, talking to researchers, building this board of like overwhelmingly white people in white coats. You can read more about that part when Des posts my thing, but they built this whole board, did all this research, and it's the same fucking people doing the same work, the same paternalism, the same bullshit, all fuckery. And so their whole plan is to identify these sites where we can make the biggest impact about suicide. And like, here's the thing, this could have actually been a really cool project, but then they've screwed it up entirely. So they picked 4 sites to be the sites where we are going to make the biggest difference in the suicide rates. And we're going to do it by screening people.
Okay. Hey, they need to get down with Richard Friedman.
We'll get to the screening thing, but the sites are healthcare systems, universal screening in emergency departments, corrections, and I think that's it. Oh, and then they want to do means restriction. Okay. So this is like literally the same thing we've been doing this whole time. In the time since they started this Project 2025, 250,000 people have died by suicide in 5 years. And the suicide rate has gone up every single year. So that has some pretty low efficacy so far. And I know they're not to their implementation phase, but given that all they came up with in that 5 years is to do the same shit more and harder, I don't really know how they expect the next 5 years to look any different, because we just started phase 2 out of their 4-phase plan. We're in phase 2 now, which is like figure out how to implement stuff, but not even implementing it yet.
I would like to know how much of their annual budget they have put toward this.
Dude, everyone should look at their budget.
How much of their annual budget goes to steak dinners?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that I've seen.
Oh no, that's SAMHSA. That's SAMHSA.
Yo, I remember seeing their budget once, and it was, and like, whatever, you spend money on t-shirts. Nonprofits spend money on a lot of things. And I think sometimes people get judgmental about what those things are in ways that are not really the most helpful, but it was worth looking at their budget. So AFSP is like, let's do the same things more and harder, because we convened the same group of people that have been talking about this forever, and guess what? They came up with the same ideas. So they identified all of these places that are critical spaces where you can access suicidal people. That is really cool. So you have all of these spaces where you know people are in distress, and their solution is, let's screen them, because we know what to do with them after that. We don't know what to do with them after that. We have no fucking idea what to do once people tell us they're suicidal.
Freak out.
We have ideas of how to help people in the moment when they're about to kill themselves. We have some ideas about locking people up, but that hasn't worked because that actually increases suicide rates sometimes. And so it's all just bullshit. But here's the thing. It's because this whole system is based on the idea that the problem is the suicidal person. So we're basically like, this person who is suicidal, now we can find them. And then what? Like, lock them up and then send them out to die another day? That's just stupid. Die Another Day is a James Bond movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it could also be AFSP's motto. But
I'm sure it's trademarked. You got to do like Die a Different Day.
Die a different day. Die tomorrow.
Maybe,
okay.
Should have died yesterday.
So So they have this whole system that's built on the idea that the problem of suicide is within this person. Instead of being like, hey, well, we identified all these places where people are really in crisis. I wonder if there's something wrong with these institutions. Nope, it must be the individuals, and we need to manage their risk and manage them. So that's some bullshit. And it's like out of control to me that we have this opportunity where you could say, wow, I wonder what it is about our correction system that makes people want to die. Or I wonder what it is about healthcare that makes people want to die. Like, we're not doing any of that. That's not the plan. The plan is, let's teach people how to do a shitty screening that's sometimes half effective at finding out who's suicidal. And then if they are, we're going to refer them into a broken system where they might, be at more risk to die later on. So, that's my AFSP rant.
That was a really impassioned rant, Jess. You're so brave.
So much. Don't call me brave ever again. Actually, Jess texts me that I'm brave a lot. It's really gross and weird. But that's how we are with each other, I guess. Gross and weird.
We are gross and weird. Wait, I have a remembery.
Yeah.
I have a remembery that about this fucking New York Times thing.
Ooh, yeah.
I gotta go back to it. I just laid it out and then didn't talk about my problems with it, which is fine because I wrote the letter to the editor and you can read that.
Yeah.
Something that was not in the letter to the editor is that I looked this guy up. He's at Weill Cornell in New York, which that's where my last psychiatrist was when I was in New York, and she did not suck. So fuck this guy. just fuck this guy anyway. Fuck him a lot. But but I looked him up to see what else he had written for the New York Times, and it seems like he pretty regularly contributes to the New York Times. There was something about skiing or some shit, something way out of left field for a psychiatrist. I mean, you can have hobbies, but clearly...
I'm not a psychiatrist ski. That is a wealthy person thing.
True. But clearly he wanted the publication. He's like...
Right.
Oh, I write for the New York Times. Whatever. I think what happened was he was just fishing around in the little pond of his brain looking for a thing to write about. And he alighted on suicide and he was like, this is the thing that I'm going to be mad about today. Nobody's doing anything about this. As if he's never seen the rest of us doing stuff. I mean, I guess he probably fucking hasn't because he's busy doling out meds. But he was just suddenly, it's the second leading cause of death. Suddenly, people are killing themselves. Did you know, New York Times? Meanwhile, the fucking editor of New York Times, I guess, was busy sucking his own dick, and he's too lazy to look for people who actually know what they're talking about. That editor is also impossible to get a hold of, turns out. His name's James Bennett.
Oh, James, we're coming for ya.
Fucking James. James and Richard can suck each other's dicks. And not in a nice, sexy way. In a gross, hate fucking way. I hate them both. I mean, as much as I could hate somebody I don't know and have no, real, whatever. This guy is hurting people. He's hurting people.
Yeah.
And he needs to go write about something fucking else. And leave it to the rest of us who know what's happening in the world.
Hard to agree.
I'm done.
Heidi, what are you mad at? Whoops.
Oh,
the worst.
Yeah, I'm just mad. I'm a mad woman. I'm a mad person, and I'm angry. I'm angry with the New York Times. Between that and the Bret Stephens bullshit, I just can't with them. I'm mad at AFSP. I'm mad at the field of suicidology. I think we're out here telling people what's killing us, and it's not because something's broken within us, because I have to believe that suicidal people are some of the strongest willed people, period. Oh, thank you, Jenny.
My sister came through with the email.
Hey, Jenny.
All right, it's right there in the comments.
All right. Wait.
Light up.
I'm trying to put it on the broadcast. Also, this man, his Twitter account is RAF_ideas. I would like to suggest that he should just change it to RAF_. His ideas suck. Fuck that guy.
Oh man.
I think that people who hear us ranting all the time, some people don't understand where we're coming from and think we're just like cunty for fun, rather than that we do this because we care, and we do like kind of want people to live until they don't want to live, but like we don't want to force them to live. Like we want things to be better.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that like yelling and ranting and like trying to find answers is a part of that. They just think we're trying to be troublemakers for funsies, because I love when people don't like me. Actually, I hate that. It hurts. I'm a people pleaser. It's very hard for me.
I don't like feeling like I don't like feeling like an asshole.
Sucks.
I don't. I also don't like that. I think because people feel often like other people with lived experience with suicide, with like suicidal thoughts or attempts. I think sometimes we have been so indoctrinated culturally by like these ideas about what suicide is and how we're supposed to tell our stories and things like that, that we become sort of like cogs in this like hope machine, but like that's not working.
I refuse.
And I don't think it's wrong to have a hopeful story. I think like Des, I feel like you have more of a like hopey feeling story. And I know lots of people who do actually have like stories that are very hopeful. Yeah. And I think that those stories are fine. I just think the problems that we have are that we prioritize certain experiences. And then when other people present something different, especially presenting something different that contradicts things that the field is very committed to, then the sort of response is that like we are like trying to harm people who have that like more mainstream feeling experience, and it's not that, it's that there's not room for anything else. Right. It's that by consistently going back to the status quo over and over and over again, and that's the only narrative, we push everyone else out to the sides, and like people are dying.
Yeah.
And that it's not working, right? So so this like resistance to change and insistence on doing things the way that we've always done them is a problem to me. And the like insistence that like suicide attempt survivors' role in this work and in this movement is like to be hope porn is just gross and like and fucked up and infantilizing. And it's like, it's also like one of the only ways to make money in this field, unless you're doing like direct service work. If you want, as an attempt survivor, to make money in the field, one of the only ways is to like tell your story.
It's true.
To tell your story as like tragedy and hope porn. And that's not fair to those people either. Like, even if you do have a story that's good for that, that's not fair. Mm-hmm. And it's not the right thing to do.
Well, and I can tell you, people don't want to fucking pay you anyway.
Yeah.
I got an email from somebody recently who was a researcher, and they were like, "Oh my God, help me!" And I was like, "Hey, so what are you going to compensate me?" And I haven't heard back. What the fuck is that? But I'll tell my story and you'll pay me. But even then, it's like, oh, you charge $5,000? Yeah, motherfucker, I'm running a business. I have to pay some bills. All of these things are expensive. I still have to pay taxes like you do. Help a bitch out if you want to hear what I have to say.
Right.
We shouldn't be compensated. We should just do this out of the goodness of our hearts. Like, I want other people to live, sure. I would also like to keep living as long as, I want to. So, you know, like, but it turns out that we end up having to help each other out, help each other live, because people aren't helping us live.
Right, and I want to be clear that I think storytelling is absolutely a cornerstone of suicide prevention if we're going to do suicide prevention, but it's not going to an audience and telling your like sad story about, and then you're like waking up and feeling better and everything's changed. That's not the way that our stories are powerful. The way that our stories are powerful is in peer support. And there's a method to doing that that's really, really good. And that's not paid either. That's some bullshit too. Like it's underpaid, it's underutilized, it's not recognized as a valid intervention. And meanwhile, you can go and tell your story to an audience of just like, who the fuck ever, college students. Like, and that is something that's worth paying for, is like some tragedy porn for the public, but not like support between people who need each other, like mutual aid is not worth paying for. So it's not just that we don't, like, we are not in control of our stories. Our narratives are used as weapons against other suicide attempt survivors. They are undervalued. They are packaged in a really specific way. So we don't get to be in control of that anymore. So it's basically like this gross capitalist takeover of something that ought to be like powerful and intimate and meaningful. And they've ruined it. They've ruined it for us. And a lot of people, that's how they get by. That's how they make their money. And it can feel really good to go in front of a group of people and have them say, like, you made me feel hopeful.
It can also feel really bad just putting it out there.
Right. So I get why people do it.
This is part of the reason I have like really scaled back the degree to which I share my story, because I have felt like vulnerability shame or something with it, and it hasn't, you know, I'm very careful about the setting in which I want it to be really intentional and really purposeful, and you know, and in a space where I know that like it's not going to be weaponized against me, where like, you know, it's going to do something besides just like, I don't know, fill a fucking 45-minute gap in someone's schedule. I think like that's like sharing my story has like really been, I don't know, it hasn't always been the most awesome. So I've you know, that's one of the decisions I've made personally as an activist, is like, if I'm sharing my story, I'm doing it in a place where it like really makes a lot of sense, and being very particular about when I choose to do that.
Mm-hmm. And like, so to me, like, I feel similarly, and that I want to share my story in ways that motivates people to do something else, to do something differently. And usually that doesn't mean actually sharing a whole lot of my story. It's more about like telling a couple of things that happened and then talking about why things should be different and like what does it practically mean to do this different. Like, because that's activist work. That's like, that is storytelling as a method of community building. That's storytelling as a way of passing down from people who have been through something to other people who are going through it right now, a pathway to something better. Like, that's how storytelling has been used for like hundreds of years, right? Is for us to share with other people about our values and our culture, and how we get through difficult times. That's what storytelling is for. It's not.
Oh fuck! Adam Dingle's back. Sorry, Adam Dingle is fucking back. Do you remember this guy?
Oh no, let's not.
He wants us to know that not all payout is monetary. I guess this motherfucker doesn't have any bills to pay.
Oh, that's for my bill collectors.
Right, yeah. Like,
Adam, go away. I don't have time for this shit.
I thought Adam Dingle was gone, but that's okay. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna ignore that.
Sorry.
It got weird last time.
It did get
weird.
weird.
Talk about Selfharm and freak people out?
Yeah. So let's make a, here is a perfect example of how we can use storytelling as like an activist method of like supporting people who might not be like getting support in other ways. So let's talk about how like self-harm could potentially be used as a suicide prevention method.
Can I take this one?
Get it.
That's you.
Yay. Okay, so I feel very strongly that providers and parents and concerned others should not be restricting people's self-harm. So for the storytelling, so I actively self-harm. I don't I don't like come to work and do I promise my workplace I don't do it at work. But I know that, like, for me, one of the most accessible ways of basically recalibrating myself when I'm feeling something really intense and really icky is by self-harming. It is more accessible to me and more effective for me than any pill has ever been. Then sometimes, like, I do rely heavily on the support of my peers. Like, peer support is really integral to my, like, general just survival. But I use self-harm. It especially when I'm feeling like very, very intense suicidal thoughts, or like have a really strong desire to die. Because the other thing is, like, I am a firearm owner, and I have, I have means in my home that are lethal. I think, like, any means can be lethal enough if you use it in the right way. Mm-hmm. And so, I have had to learn over time to rely on the things that are most accessible to help me manage. It's a form of, like, redirecting my brain away from things that are, like, might actually kill me. I think, I want to, the reason I'm saying this is because I want to validate for anybody else out there that uses self-harm to cope, whether it's substance use, whether it's cutting or burning or pulling your hair out, or, whatever you have to do to manage a really intense emotion, that is a really valid coping skill. And that is the thing that may be keeping you alive. And that's important. And we ought to not shame people who are utilizing what is most accessible to them in a world where accessing basic care that's not, like, shitty and patriarchal and over the top expensive. Mm-hmm. Like, we shouldn't shame people for doing what they have to do to survive. Yeah. And like, I'm in that boat with you, and I see you and I hear you. And, if you're a provider or a concerned other, how about we don't, like, shame our loved ones or our clients for, cutting when they feel really intense, like, intense emotions, intense feelings, having really intense thoughts that are, like, disruptive to their lives. It takes a lot to, like, re-regulate when things feel so out of control. And we shouldn't, like, punish and shame people. And if you're doing that, you're a fucking asshole.
Boom. And, like, I think it's important to remember that, like, if you take away the coping skill that works for someone, the likelihood that they'll kill themselves is way higher. So we get really freaked out by self-harm, and I think it can be scary. And there are things that are really challenging for people about self-harm who don't engage in it. And so, fine, like, that's all true. Mm-hmm. But it's also true that, like, sometimes it's the only way people live. And it's also true that it might be more effective or work differently than other things that people try. And it's, like, not worse for you actually than medication. Like, you can die coming off of benzos. So, like, if the solution is, like, take a benzo or self-harm, like, that's a pretty big toss-up on which is more harmful, right?
But it's not about us.
Any of the other consequences that might come from self-harming.
It's not about us, though. It's about other people. It makes other people uncomfortable. Like,
right.
I mean, I cut myself for 10 years. 9, almost. Yeah. No, that's not even true. I cut myself on and off for longer than that. I haven't cut myself for, like, 2 years now, but it was the only thing that really worked.
Yeah.
But it's scary. It's scary to other people, and so that means that it can't be useful ever because it scares other people.
Yeah, so, like, I think we can have really good discussions about, like, how do we make self-harming not life-threatening for you? How do we, like, accomplish that goal in a way that, like, keeps you safe as well? Like, there's all kinds of harm reduction you can do around self-harm with someone, if you want to support them and they're open to that, that's totally something that's helpful and people are usually open to. But just the idea of, like, shutting it down as like a not useful or inappropriate behavior is just stupid.
And if you want to know the best, this is crazy, but if you want to know the best practices around self-harming and doing it in ways that are non-lethal and not life-threatening, you should talk to people who actually fucking do it. Instead of shutting them out of group, shutting them down in therapy, you know, forcing them to cover themselves constantly. I walk around here with brand new, fresh ass fucking wounds, and I don't care because I'm just like, well, at this point in my life, in my career, I'm just not gonna let people shame me anymore. Like, I feel like I carry enough of that on my own that I'm like, I don't need the rest of the world's bullshit. But that's, you know, that's something I've come to after like years and years. But the other thing is like, last February, it's been almost a year, Jess, can you believe it? I came off Effexor after having been on Effexor for many years and medication like 13 years old. And 0 out of 10 would not recommend doing it the way I did. I did it in a month. Like, do not recommend that. But I wanted off of it so bad. It was draining my bank account. I don't actually think it was helping. I wanted to experience the world not medicated for the first time in my adult life. And part of what helped me not kill myself during very, very awful periods of time where, like, I temporarily lost my sight, I temporarily lost my ability to hear, I drove a couple times when I shouldn't have, you know, like, very, like, my whole world was completely shaken, and I relied on self-harm to help me manage when things felt so bad that I wanted to die. And I'm really glad that I had that at my disposal because, you know, people die coming off that shit. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and like the sort of like hierarchy of coping skills is kind of like ludicrous to me. Like we all in bad coping skills all the time that are harmful to us. It's just the like idea that we would say that some of those coping skills are self-harming and some aren't. Like, I think all coping skills are varying degrees of harmful or not to you, and we can do harm reduction around any of them, and we ought to if we're supporting people.
Yoga is beautiful and perfect.
We'll save the yoga for another day. And I think that helps people even, and also has some harmful things. But like everyone deals with things in different ways, and the consequences of not doing those things could be like life-threatening, more life-threatening than whatever people are engaging in. So like, is someone cutting themselves 5 times a year better or worse than trying to kill themselves 5 times a year?
Yeah.
I don't know, but like, it probably just is up to that person to let you know. Right? It's not our job to determine which one's better or worse. It's our job, if we're supporting people, it's our job, or just, you know, our humans who give a shit. It's our job to like be there for someone when they struggle and when they're in pain and like help them find their way through that.
Yeah.
And sometimes the way through that is like some self-harming.
Jess, talk about your tattoo.
Oh, I had a bad week. And sometimes when I want to, like, so I don't frequently want to self-harm. It's not like a common coping skill for me, but I had a bad week and I like thought about it a lot. And then I went and got a switchblade tattoo instead. It's on my arm.
Yeah.
it's excellent.
And what was really great is like I told the tattoo artist that, and he was like, "Oh, cool, this is better." And I was like, "Yeah, I think so."
A little bit more expensive,
And he was just real cool about it. And that was the whole conversation. So, yeah, I liked that.
Nice. You know what got me to stop cutting?
What?
I slammed my head into my counter instead.
Ooh, well,
Yeah, like, don't do that.
that's a pathway.
That's a
change
pathway to a TBI, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now we don't do those things. But I did that because I couldn't find anything sharp enough, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. My sister has a great comment, which is that she needs to spend some time trying to figure out how to get peer support and harm reduction paid for by insurance companies because they reimburse for fucking gym memberships. So why not peer support?
That is true.
That's another thing about. Turns out, didn't know about it till just now. But I'll talk about that too.
That is true.
So-
I remember that.
We have had our full hour of beef corner.
Oh, I didn't even play the beef corner thingy. I'm going to do it now.
Well, it was a full hour of it.
It was a whole
It
hour
was
of beef. It's true.
Thanks for having me for this special beef corner.
Yeah.
Of
We'll
course.
probably bring it back for that. We can bring you back for some more Selfharm stuff. Probably.
Didn't we have plans for that?
Yeah.
Or did we not put
well-
them in the schedule yet? Is that what it was?
Well, we were going to have Trauma Queen on, and then we switched Johnnie Jae and Trauma Queen tonight.
Oh, fuck my life.
Because she came through in a pinch.
Johnnie Jae. We need to get this host some better internet.
Yeah. Well, someone's working on it, and she's coming back another day.
Good.
So-
I like it. Do we have anything else that we want to share?
Thanks, Joelle and Krista and Leia and Mal. I see you too.
Yeah, Jenny. Lots of people
Jenny.
tuned in tonight.
Biggest thanks for me go to Adam Dingle.
My boss was on there.
Huh?
I think my boss was on at the end.
Oh, yeah? Good, good,
Yeah.
good.
Right in time for the self-harm talk. She's heard that rant before. Probably has heard all my rants before.
I like it.
But yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All
We're
right.
going to have someone on next week. It is, or not next week, in 2 weeks.
Who is it? Who is it? Who is it?
It is, Carly and Anastasia,
Hey.
killing me softly, past the suicidal thought. It's going to be the smooth jazz version.
Well, you got to remind me to play that song, the original.
Killing Me Softly.
Yeah.
It's like in our calendar.
But
So-
I was sleeping until like 20 minutes before this episode started, so
I'm just saying when we get to that
Just
day, it'll be
remind
easy
me.
to remember. So January 28th, y'all.
all right, January 28th, 9 p.m. Eastern,
Killing Us Softly.
8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain. I'm not sure about Hawaii time, though. That's like 5 hours.
It's 5 hours. My sister's in Hawaii right now.
What the fuck is she doing? I can't even keep up with this bitch anymore.
She's just like fucking around in Hawaii. It's cool. You should follow her on Instagram.
I do
Her
follow her
Instagram
on
is just-
Instagram.
Man, it's not you, everybody.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Follow
Jenny,
Jenny on Instagram. She's got a lot of cool plants and stuff.
what's her handle?
Jay Stowe.
Jay
with
Stowe.
me.
In my brain, it was Jenny Says You Go Girl, but that's my old neighbor. Just kidding. You can follow her too.
I think on Twitter, so you can call Jenny.
Yeah, that's why.
Which is a
Okay.
great name. You can call Jenny.
You can call Jenny.
Yeah. Anyway, she's cool too.
Her number is
All right.
867.
Bye, everybody.
No? Okay, never mind. All right, we're going. We're going. I'm going to stop talking. We're going.
What do you say?
Bye.
Bye.